Hi, I'm Dave Anderson. In this video, I'll take you on location in Colorado to explain some terms that are easily confused. I'll explain returns to scale, how they differ from diminishing marginal returns, and how they relate to economies of scale and diseconomies of scale. I'd like to talk about increasing returns to scale, constant returns to scale, and decreasing returns to scale. Let me first mention that these are different from the concept of marginal returns, which is about when you're increasing one input and leaving at least one other input constant. For example, at the pool behind me, they could increase the number of lifeguards and increase the number of swimmers that they can invite into the pool, but at a decreasing rate. The first lifeguard would allow them to open the largest swim area. Maybe 50 swimmers could come in. A second lifeguard would open the second largest area of this large pool, and maybe 30 more swimmers could come in. A third lifeguard could open the smallest area, 20 more swimmers could come in. You have diminishing marginal returns because each additional lifeguard allows fewer additional new swimmers. But the size of the pool stays the same. Over the next year, this pool that I'm standing in front of is going to increase in size. They're going to spend $10 million or so increasing the size of the pool. In the long run, they can do that. If you're looking at increasing the size of the pool and the number of lifeguards at the same rate, then you have returns to scale. If they doubled the pool and doubled the number of lifeguards, they could double the number of swimmers, and they would have constant returns to scale because the increase in their output, swimmers, would be the same as the increase in their inputs, the size of the pool and lifeguards. Now, suppose you increased your inputs and you got a more than proportional increase in your output. For example, suppose that you made storage space. You make boxes to store stuff in. You could make a box that would hold 1 cubic foot of stuff with 6 sides, each being 1 square foot in area. You'd have a total of 6 square feet of input. Instead, you could make your sides 2 feet by 2 feet. Each side would have 4 square feet of material. 6 of those sides would take 24 square feet of material, but your storage space would be 8 cubic feet. So by increasing your inputs from 6 to 24, that's a 4-fold increase. You increased your output by 8-fold. You have increasing returns to scale. Now, suppose you owned a mine like the one behind me here in Colorado. If you doubled the number of inputs, twice as many buildings, twice as much land, twice as many miners, twice as much equipment, would you get twice as much silver out of the mine? No, because this mine is placed in the optimal location where the most silver is. A second set of inputs would have to go somewhere that's not as productive. It doesn't have as much silver, so you wouldn't get twice as much silver from the second mine. Similar things happen in a lot of other natural resource extraction situations, as with oil. And in agriculture, the first farm is located where the ground is most productive. If you duplicated that farm, double the inputs, you wouldn't get double the output because you'd have to put that second farm in an inferior location. If you double your inputs and get less than double your output, you have decreasing returns to scale. Returns to scale are related to the concepts of economies of scale and diseconomies of scale. You have economies of scale if, as you produce more in the long run, your long-run average cost falls. You have diseconomies of scale if, as you produce more in the long run, your long-run average cost rises. Now, if you have increasing returns to scale, you will experience economies of scale. But when you're experiencing economies of scale, you're not necessarily increasing all of your inputs by the same proportion. So they're not exactly the same concept. Similarly, if you have decreasing returns to scale, you will experience diseconomies of scale, but you might experience diseconomies of scale even if you're not increasing all of your inputs by the same proportion. So increasing returns to scale, constant returns to scale, and decreasing returns to scale have to do with increasing all of your inputs by the same proportion, whereas with economies and diseconomies of scale, You're increasing your output, but you're not necessarily increasing your inputs by the same proportion. Are you ready for a quiz? Suppose you make highways with capital like this, and workers and other materials, and you can double the amount of equipment, workers, and materials and produce twice as many miles of highway in the same amount of time. What are you experiencing? Did you say constant returns to scale? If so, nailed it. Well done. Here's another question. Suppose that you operate a rock quarry in the location that has the most abundant supply of rock. You're thinking of doubling your inputs, having 2 quarries, having twice as much labor, twice as much equipment. What do you think you would experience? What type of returns to scale? Did you say decreasing returns to scale? Nailed it. That's right, because the second location will not be the best location. It will not be the most abundant supply of rock. It will have to be a place that has less rock. So you won't get as much output from that second location. You have decreasing returns to scale because you doubled your inputs and have less than doubled your output. Well done. You rock.